Funny thing about the next 24 hours. You think they'll slip by like every other day. Quiet, forgettable, predictable. But the world doesn't work like that. Somewhere out there, a story is already being written about you. One you don't control, one you can't stop once it starts moving. It could be a mistake you thought no one noticed, a secret you thought was buried, or a moment you never imagined anyone would see. And when it breaks, when it spreads faster than you can breathe, you'll realize just how little control you ever had over the version of yourself the world decides to believe. The world sees what you try to hide. You think you're clever, don't you? Covering your tracks, polishing your image, pretending you've got nothing to fear. You smile, you pose, you speak carefully, as if every move is calculated to keep the truth tucked neatly behind your mask. But masks slip. They always do. And when they do, the world doesn't politely look away. No, it stares. It points. It spreads what it sees until you can't control the story anymore. People are obsessed with control. They convince themselves they can manage how others see them. They curate their lives, edit their words, hide their scars. They believe if they're careful enough, no one will ever catch a glimpse of what's real. But reality has a nasty way of leaking through the cracks. A slip of the tongue, a glance at the wrong time, a reaction you didn't plan. Suddenly the curtain falls, and the truth flashes out before you can pull it back. And once the world catches it, it never forgets. What's dangerous is how fast the truth spreads once it's exposed. You could spend years building an image, polishing it, protecting it, only for it to collapse in seconds. One photograph, one video, one overheard word. Suddenly it's everywhere, replayed, shared, dissected. The thing you tried hardest to bury becomes the headline written about you. The world doesn't care about the effort you put into hiding it. It only cares about the thrill of seeing what you didn't want it to see. It's ironic, isn't it? The very things you hide the most are the ones that define you. Your fears, your mistakes, your weaknesses. They're not erased just because you refuse to show them. They sit beneath the surface, waiting. And the more you push them down, the louder they echo. You may fool people for a while, but eventually, the truth has a way of clawing to the surface. And when it does, it doesn't knock gently. It explodes. People like to pretend they're mysterious, that their secrets are safe, that no one can really see them. But the truth is, the world notices more than you think. The nervous laugh, the hesitation, the way you avoid certain topics, it all adds up. People sense what you're hiding even when they can't name it. And when the moment comes, when something cracks open, it all makes sense to them. They connect the dots you thought you'd scattered, and suddenly the picture is clear. What you try to hide becomes the most interesting thing about you. Nobody cares about the polished version you present. They're drawn to the flaws, the failures, the shadows. That's what spreads. That's what people talk about, because it feels real. And the more you resist it, the bigger the spotlight gets. Denial only fuels the fire. Silence only makes them dig deeper. The harder you try to cover it up, the more obvious it becomes that there's something worth uncovering. You see it happen all the time. Someone spends years building a spotless reputation, and then one secret leaks, and suddenly the facade collapses. People don't remember the carefully constructed image. They remember the thing that was hidden. The one thing you wanted to bury becomes the symbol of who you are. And no matter how much you scream that it isn't fair, the world doesn't care. It's not about fairness, it's about fascination. The truth is, hiding never saves you. It only delays the inevitable. The more energy you pour into protecting the secret, the more power it gains over you. And when it finally escapes, and it always does, it hits you twice as hard. First, because the world sees it, and second, because you wasted so much of your life trying to keep it from being seen. You end up trapped by the very thing you thought you had buried. The world sees what you try to hide, not because it's cruel, but because that's the nature of truth. It doesn't stay buried. It doesn't obey. It doesn't ask for permission to surface. It waits patiently for the perfect moment to reveal itself. And when it does, the world pays attention. Because nothing captures their attention like the thing you swore they would never see. One moment can rewrite your identity. You live your life thinking you're defined by years of choices, by the steady climb of your actions, by the careful image you've built brick by brick. But that's not how the world works. The world doesn't care about the hundreds of things you did right. It only remembers the one moment that broke the pattern. The slip, the crack, the spark that catches fire. In a single second, the identity you've carried for years can be burned to ash, replaced by a new version of you that you never asked for but can't escape. That's the cruel reality of life. Consistency means nothing when the wrong moment arrives. You could be kind for a lifetime, but one act of cruelty defines you. You could be loyal for years, but one betrayal is all it takes for people to rewrite your story. You could live with dignity, discipline, and control, but one weakness shown in the wrong place, at the wrong time, becomes the headline that follows you forever. People don't care about the whole book. They only care about the page that shocks them. The danger is how little warning you get. Moments don't ask for permission before they change you. They sneak up, disguised as ordinary seconds, until suddenly they explode into something unforgettable. And once they happen, there's no going back. You can't erase them, can't rewind, can't convince people to unsee what they saw. The moment takes on a life of its own, and suddenly you're no longer who you thought you were. You're the version of yourself created by that single instant. The world loves to rewrite identities because it's easy. It's simple to reduce someone to one moment. It makes stories cleaner. It makes judgment quicker. Nobody wants to hear about the complexity of your life, about all the effort, all the nuance. They want the viral headline, the shocking detail, the thing that sticks. And so, you become defined not by the sum of your life, but by the sharp edge of one moment that cuts through all the noise. Think about how fragile identity really is. You spend years trying to shape it, fighting to be seen a certain way, struggling to control the narrative. But it takes only 1 second to lose that control. One mistake in public, one recording leaked, one truth exposed, and the version of yourself you've built collapses. The crowd doesn't care about your protests, doesn't care about your explanations. They take the moment, they spread it, they carve it into your name. And from then on, you wear it like a scar you can't cover. The terrifying part is that the moment doesn't even have to be true. Perception is enough. If people believe it, if it spreads fast enough, it doesn't matter whether it was fair, whether it was accurate, whether it was the whole story. Identity isn't built on truth, it's built on what people decide to remember. And they don't remember the years of silence. They remember the one moment that screamed the loudest. That's why people live in fear of exposure, fear of mistakes, fear of being caught off guard. They know how quickly the tide can turn. One wrong word can erase a lifetime of loyalty. One careless act can overshadow decades of discipline. One flash of weakness can redefine everything you stand for. And the world doesn't hand it back once it's taken. Once the moment rewrites you, it's permanent. You can try to rebuild, but the crack will always remain in the glass. What makes this so cruel is that you don't even get to decide which moment defines you. It's not up to you. It's up to them. The crowd, the watchers, the voices that echo your story louder than you can speak it yourself. You might think you're remembered for your best, but more often, you're remembered for your worst. And the worst doesn't need to last long. It only needs a second, a single slip of the mask, and the moment becomes your new face. One moment can rewrite your identity, and when it does, you realize how fragile the idea of who you are has always been. Not built on truth, not built on history, not built on the whole picture. Just one moment, sharp enough to cut through everything else, permanent enough to replace all that came before. Secrets have a way of escaping. You think you've buried them deep. Lock them away where no one will ever find them, but secrets don't like to stay quiet. They rot in the dark, and the longer you hide them, the louder they start to whisper. At first it's subtle, a flicker in your expression, a hesitation in your voice, a silence where there should have been words. People don't always notice, but the cracks begin to show. And once the cracks appear, it's only a matter of time before the whole thing spills out. You tell yourself you're safe because no one knows. You convince yourself the past is behind you, that what you've hidden will stay hidden. But secrets are alive. They breathe inside your chest, waiting for the moment you're too tired to keep the walls up. They leak into your gestures, your choices, your reactions. Someone asks a question, and your pause says more than the answer ever could. Secrets don't vanish, they cling, and they demand to be seen. The danger of a secret is that it doesn't even need to be revealed by you. The world has a way of dragging it into the light. A misplaced file, an overheard conversation, a slip of the tongue from someone you thought would stay silent. One tiny spark, And everything you worked so hard to hide is out. And once it's out, you can't control it. You can't decide how people interpret it, can't rewrite the story to make yourself look better. The secret stops being yours the moment it escapes. It belongs to everyone else. That's why secrets are heavier than truth. Truth is sharp but clean. It stings when it's exposed, but at least it's honest. Secrets fester. They poison you slowly, shaping the way you move, the way you think, the way you breathe. And because you carry that weight, people feel it. They may not know the details, but they sense something's there. Humans are drawn to hidden things, and nothing attracts more attention than the faint scent of a secret. What makes secrets so cruel is the illusion of control. You think you're the one in charge because you've hidden it, because you've managed to keep it quiet for so long. But really, the secret is in charge. It decides how much of your life it controls. It dictates who you trust, how close you let people get, what stories you tell to cover your tracks. It becomes the shadow that follows you, shaping your every move, even when no one else knows it's there. And then comes the moment of escape. It never happens when you're ready. It doesn't wait for you to prepare, to explain, to soften the blow. No, it breaks free when you least expect it. When you've convinced yourself it'll stay buried forever. Maybe it comes out in anger. Maybe it slips out in laughter. Maybe it explodes in front of everyone, louder than you ever imagine. But however it happens, it leaves you exposed. And exposure is something you can't take back. Once the secret is out, people don't see you the same way anymore. It doesn't matter how carefully you lived before, how tightly you controlled your image, how much good you've done. They fixate on the thing you hid. It becomes the headline of your life, the story that follows you. And the more you fight it, the more power it gains. You can explain, deny, justify, but none of it matters. The secret, once free, speaks louder than you ever could. You spend so much energy trying to keep it in the dark, but the dark was never safe. Secrets don't belong there. They want the light. They wait for cracks. They create pressure. They demand release. And when the time comes, no matter how hard you resist, they find their way out. Because that's the nature of secrets. They were never meant to stay hidden forever. The next 24 hours decide your narrative. You think time drips by slowly, safely, that tomorrow will look like yesterday. But the truth is far more vicious. A single day can tear your life apart or stitch it into something unrecognizable. What you do, what you say, even what you don't say. Every choice in the next 24 hours has teeth. And those teeth bite deep enough to leave marks that never fade. The illusion is that days are small, that they blur together into routines and patterns. But there are days that don't blur. Days that split your life in half, before and after. And you never know which day it will be until it arrives. 24 hours can crown you or crucify you. It can hand you the recognition you craved or drag you through humiliation you never thought you'd survive. That's the cruelty of it. So much weight balanced on something so deceptively short. People think time gives second chances, but not always. Some windows never reopen. The wrong decision, the wrong reaction, the wrong silence. It can all trap you in a story you never wanted to tell. You think you'll have more time to explain, to fix, to recover. But when the narrative forms in the next 24 hours, the world won't wait for your version. They'll seize what they see. They'll build their judgments. And suddenly, you're living in a story written without your permission. What makes this window so dangerous is how invisible it feels. Right now, you don't see the ripple building. You don't see the eyes watching, the ears listening, the cracks forming under your feet. You move casually, unaware that each step is shaping something far bigger than you realize. Then, in a blink, it becomes clear. The clock ticks, the story breaks, and what was once just another day turns into the day everyone remembers you for. The next 24 hours carry a kind of silent brutality. They don't scream at you. They don't announce themselves with flashing warnings. They whisper. And by the time you notice the whisper, it's already too late. What you say at a dinner table, how you react to a stranger, the words you post without thinking, the private moment that gets caught in the wrong frame. These are the threads that weave into a headline you never asked for. And once the headline exists, it doesn't matter what came before. It overshadows everything. The danger isn't just what you do, but what you fail to do. Missed chances define you as much as mistakes. Silence when you should have spoken, hesitation when you should have acted, apathy when you should have cared. These absences are louder than you imagine. In the next 24 hours, you may not realize the weight of the opportunities slipping through your fingers. But the world notices, and they write your narrative from what you failed to grasp. Every hour feels ordinary until it isn't. Midnight to midnight, a quiet revolution can unfold in the background of your life. And when you wake up tomorrow, you might not recognize the version of yourself the world has decided to see. You may try to explain, to correct, to claw back control, but once those 24 hours pass, your narrative is sealed. Not by you, not by truth, but by perception. And perception, once written, rarely erases itself. Fear is the doorway to growth. People run from it, hide from it, pretend it isn't there. But fear doesn't disappear just because you turn your back on it. It waits. It lingers. It sharpens its claws in the dark and reminds you every time you close your eyes that it hasn't gone anywhere. Fear isn't the enemy. It's the invitation. It's the test that separates who stays the same and who breaks through into something more. You tell yourself you want growth, that you want change, that you want to become stronger, smarter, untouchable. But you want it without the trembling hands, without the racing heart, without the dizzy, sickening feeling of being out of control. Growth doesn't work like that. Growth comes hand in hand with fear, because it's proof that you're touching the edge of the unknown. And the unknown is where everything you want is hiding. Fear is the price of entry. Without it, you're not even in the game. Think about it every moment in your life. where you became more than you were before. Fear was standing at the door. The first time you risked rejection, the first time you stepped into a room where you didn't belong, the first time you stood on a stage, the first time you told the truth no one wanted to hear. Fear was there, and you walked through it, or you didn't. And the path of your life was shaped by which choice you made. People think fear is a signal to stop, but it's not. It's a compass. It points directly at the thing you're supposed to face. If something doesn't scare you, it means it doesn't have the power to change you. Comfort never transforms anyone. Fear does, because it strips away the illusions. When you're afraid, you're real. You're raw. No masks, no pretenses. Just you standing naked in front of the challenge. And that's the moment you find out who you are. Most run from that mirror. They slam the door, retreat into habits, back into routines where nothing is at risk. Safe, predictable, small. But growth laughs at safety. It doesn't care about your routines. It lives on the other side of that trembling. On the other side of the risk, you're too scared to take. The irony is that the more you run from fear, the more it controls you. You think you're safe, but you're shackled. Every decision you avoid because of fear becomes another chain around your neck. But when you walk into it, when you choose not to run, something changes. Fear doesn't vanish. It transforms. The racing heart, the sweat, the panic, they're still there, but now they become fuel. They sharpen your senses, force you into the present, strip away distractions. Fear wakes you up. It pushes you to a level of focus and intensity you'd never find sitting comfortably in the quiet. And in that heightened state, you discover sides of yourself you never knew existed. That's the doorway. Growth doesn't come after the fear is gone. It comes because you went through it. Every breakthrough you've ever admired, every person you've ever envied, every story of transformation you've ever heard, they all walked through the same door. They felt the same shaking in their bones, the same doubt gnawing in their skull. But they didn't turn back. They walked straight into it. And they came out the other side as someone different. And here's the secret most don't want to admit. Fear never really leaves. There will always be another door, another trembling, another moment where your stomach knots and your lungs tighten. But that's not weakness. That's life telling you there's more. That's life pointing at the next level, the next version of yourself waiting in the dark. And the only way you meet that version is by walking through the fear, again and again, until the person you used to be feels like a ghost. Once it spreads, you can't take it back. Words, actions, moments. They don't vanish into thin air after they leave you. They linger, they multiply. They crawl through cracks and climb into ears you never intended them to reach. You think you can control the story, keep it small, keep it manageable, but the moment it escapes, it no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the crowd, and the crowd is hungry. A whisper turns into a murmur turns into a roar, and before you realize what's happening, the thing you thought was insignificant has grown teeth. It has a life of its own. People don't repeat what you meant, they repeat what they heard. They don't care about your context, your explanation, your justifications. They care about the version that excites them, the version that shocks them, the version that spreads the fastest. That version becomes the truth, whether you like it or not. And here's the part that gnaws at you. The smallest slip can ignite it. One careless word, one glance caught at the wrong angle, one moment of weakness recorded on the wrong device. That's all it takes. The fire doesn't care whether you deserved it, whether you were misunderstood, whether the story is twisted. Once it's burning, people gather around for warmth, for entertainment, for blood. They share it, they amplify it, they laugh, they judge, they point. You become a spectacle. You try to fight it. You shout, you explain, you beg people to see the truth. But no one listens to the fire's victim, they listen to the flames. Every word you say sounds like desperation. Every attempt to correct the story just feeds it more fuel. You watch as your own life slips out of your control, rewritten by strangers who don't know you, don't care about you, but love the story you accidentally gave them. And you realize how powerless you are once the wheel starts turning. The brutal reality is that the crowd doesn't want the truth. They want the version that entertains them. They want the version that makes them feel righteous, or clever, or superior. They want the story that keeps them talking, keeps them sharing, keeps them connected. And the truth is boring. The truth doesn't spread. So your life becomes the twisted tale they enjoy the most, whether it reflects you or not. That's why one moment can change everything, because the world doesn't wait for you to clean it up. Once the image is out there, once the words are floating through the air, they stick. They lodge themselves in people's minds, and no amount of explanation washes them away. You could spend years building a name, and one slip in the next 24 hours can burn it all to the ground. It's unfair. But fairness doesn't matter when the mob is entertained. And once it spreads, it never dies. Even if the crowd moves on, even if tomorrow they're feeding on someone else's mistakes, the mark remains. It lingers in search engines, in screenshots, in memories. You'll meet people years later who still see you through the lens of that moment, that story, that thing you couldn't take back. The internet doesn't forget. The world doesn't forgive. It just archives. That's the terror of it. You can't undo what's been released. You can't reel it back in, can't silence the voices, can't erase the evidence. You stand in the center of the storm, realizing too late that the damage isn't something you can fix. It's already out there, already multiplying, already rewriting your identity. Once it spreads, it grows bigger than you. And you're left watching your reflection distort into something you don't recognize. They don't tell you the price until you're already at the table, do they? They just whisper about glory, success, destiny, but they never hand you the bill up front. And when it comes, oh, it's heavier than you thought. Because this path you're standing on, chosen one, isn't paved with gold. It's paved with pieces of you. Your comfort, Your safety, your sleep, your peace, maybe even the people you love. You think you can walk through fire and not smell like smoke. You think you can hold greatness without it burning your hands. This isn't a game of what you're willing to win. It's a game of what you're willing to lose. And the question isn't, do you want it? The question is, can you afford the cost? Every choice demands a sacrifice, whether you admit it or not. That's the part nobody likes to hear, isn't it? Everyone wants the shining reward, the sweet taste of victory, the applause at the end of the show. But when the curtain rises, there's always a bill to pay. And that bill, my friend, is never written in ink. It's written in flesh, in time, in sanity. You see, life is like a crooked dealer at a rigged table. It'll hand you a card that looks golden, but the second you hold it tight, you realize something has slipped out of your pocket. Maybe it's your peace of mind, maybe your sleep, maybe someone you thought would always stand beside you. Every step forward, something gets left behind, even if you pretend you didn't notice. And isn't it funny how people try to avoid it? They build their little safety nets, whispering to themselves, I can have it all. I can hold everything. I can win without bleeding. But that's the cruelest joke of them all. The bigger the dream, the sharper the blade it carries. The louder the applause, the deeper the silence that follows when everyone's gone home. Do you know why? Because the universe never hands out freebies. It collects its price in shadows, in nights where you stare at the ceiling, wondering if the victory was worth the wreckage. Take a look at the greats, the legends everyone worships. What do you see? Crowns, wealth, power, respect. But look closer. Don't just stare at the jewels. Stare at the cracks on their skin. They've paid for every inch of their glory with something they'll never get back. Families broken, friendships dissolved, hearts hardened into stone. The world loves a winner, but it never asks what that winner had to bury to get there. And maybe that's the most twisted part. The crowd only cheers for the shine, never for the scars. So here's the choice you've been avoiding. What are you willing to give up? Don't fool yourself with sweet lies. Every path has a toll booth waiting. You want strength. You'll lose comfort. You want truth. You'll lose the cozy lies you wrapped yourself in. You want freedom. You'll lose the chains that made you feel safe. And oh, the irony. Most people are terrified of paying the toll. So they sit in line forever, staring at the gate, never crossing, never moving. They think they're saving themselves, when really, they're just rotting in their own delay. But maybe you've felt it already. That creeping itch inside. The quiet whisper telling you the easy road is a trap. You've watched others walk around, clinging to their illusions, pretending they can dodge the cost. And deep down, you know they're doomed. Because sooner or later, the sacrifice comes to collect, whether you've chosen it or not. It doesn't knock politely. It kicks the door in, grabs what it wants, and leaves you trembling in the dark. The secret: you can't escape the sacrifice, but you can choose it. That's the only power you'll ever truly have. Do you surrender something small now, or watch something larger be ripped from your hands later? Do you burn your nights chasing the vision, or wait until your life burns itself out with regret? The scales are always moving, the price always waiting. Every choice, every step, every breath, something slips away. Something dies so something else can live. You've been lied to. If you think sacrifice is a punishment, it's not. It's the hidden doorway. The blood in the soil that makes the seed grow. The silence between the notes that makes the music alive. Without sacrifice, nothing worth having ever survives. But don't be fooled. It's not pretty. It's not clean. It's ugly. It's raw. It's brutal. And the sooner you stop hiding from it, the sooner you realize that the only real freedom you'll ever taste is found in the very thing you've been running from. People walk around clutching their little comforts as if they'll last forever. They hold on to routine, money, reputation, approval, like children clutching toys, afraid someone might snatch them away. But here's the reality no one wants to say out loud. Every single thing you're holding can be taken in a moment. A breath, a twist of fate, and it's gone. That car you polish every weekend, the house you lock up tight, the people you swear will never leave. They can all vanish before you can even blink. And then what? You're left standing in the rubble, realizing that all the things you built your identity around were nothing but paper walls. Most people can't handle that thought, so they pretend it isn't true. They wrap themselves in illusions, jobs that make them feel important, relationships that cover their insecurities, habits that numb the noise inside their head. They tell themselves they're safe, but deep down they know it's a fragile lie. One unexpected crack, and the whole thing comes tumbling down. That's why they hate silence, why they run from stillness. Because in those moments, the truth gets loud, and they realize they've built their lives on sand. Losing isn't always the tragedy people make it out to be. Sometimes it's the only way to see what's real. When everything is stripped away, when the masks are torn off and the props are burned to ash, you're left with the raw, bare core of who you are. And that's terrifying for most, because they've spent their whole lives avoiding themselves. But for the few who can stand in that naked truth, loss becomes a gift. Because suddenly, you see what actually matters, what can't be bought, stolen, or destroyed. And isn't it interesting how people only wake up when the ground caves beneath them? They beg for clarity, for strength, for miracles. But only after everything else is gone. They never ask for wisdom when they're comfortable. They never search for depth when the lights are still on. No, they wait until the darkness smothers them. And only then do they finally open their eyes. That's the cruel little trick life plays. It doesn't give you truth when you're smiling. It gives it to you when you're screaming. The collapse is not your enemy. It's the uninvited guest that rips away your illusions. And yes, it hurts. It always hurts. But in the wreckage, you discover the foundations that were always hidden beneath. You learn who stands by you when there's nothing left to gain. You learn what your mind does when there's no escape hatch. You learn whether your faith, your courage, your fire was real, or just another mask you wore to blend in. People like to talk about strength as if it comes from lifting weights or giving speeches. But true strength isn't built when you're winning. It's revealed when you've lost. When the money dries up, when the people leave, when the applause fades. That's when you find out whether you've been feeding on illusions or building something that can't be burned down. The storm doesn't create the strength. It shows it. So maybe what you thought was a disaster is actually a door. Maybe the loss you dread is the very thing trying to free you. Because when you've lost everything, nothing owns you anymore. You can't be blackmailed by fear. You can't be chained by comfort. You can't be bribed by shiny distractions. You've already paid the price. And from that place, you're untouchable. The world can throw its worst, and you'll keep standing. Because you've seen what it feels like to have nothing, and survived it. Most people will never know that kind of freedom. They'll stay chained to their fragile little lives, protecting their sandcastles, praying the tide won't come in. But the tide always comes. The question is, will you run screaming as it washes everything away? Or will you laugh in the face of it? Knowing that you were never just the castle, you were the ocean all along. People like to think the world is fair, that if they play by the rules and keep their head down, they'll be spared from the chaos. They whisper little lies to themselves: work hard, stay good, and you'll be rewarded. But reality doesn't bend to their bedtime stories. Reality is brutal, unpredictable, and merciless. It doesn't care if you're honest or crooked, rich or poor, kind or cruel. It doesn't stop to weigh your efforts or measure your morality. It sweeps through like a storm. And the only thing that decides who survives isn't luck or justice. It's whether you were ready when it came. Most people never prepare. They convince themselves tomorrow will look like today. That comfort will stretch on forever. They stockpile distractions instead of strength, illusions instead of wisdom. They laugh at warnings, dismiss the signs, cover their ears when the alarms are screaming. And then, when the collapse comes, they act shocked, as if the cracks hadn't been showing all along, as if the decay wasn't spreading in plain sight. The truth is, they chose blindness because it was easier than facing the cost of awareness. The chosen one, though, doesn't get the luxury of blindness. The chosen one sees too much, feels too deeply, notices the tremors before the earthquake, and with that awareness comes a heavy burden, because once you see, you can't unsee. You can't go back to sleep while everyone else snores peacefully in their ignorance. You stand alone in a room full of dreamers, screaming about the fire while they roll over and beg you to be quiet. That's the curse of vision. You carry clarity in a world that worships denial. And what happens when you speak the truth in a world addicted to lies? They turn on you. They call you crazy, paranoid, dramatic. They laugh at you because it's easier than listening. But deep down, some part of them knows you're right. They feel the cracks beneath their feet, the tremors in their bones. They sense the storm creeping closer, but fear makes them cling tighter to the illusion. They'd rather destroy the messenger than face the message. That's why the chosen one always feels like an outcast, because truth is a mirror, and most people can't stand to look at themselves. But here's the thing about reality. It doesn't need their permission. It doesn't matter how tightly they shut their eyes, how loudly they scream their lies. When the wave comes, it doesn't knock politely. It smashes through, and suddenly the deniers are drowning in the very flood they mocked. And in that moment, they'll remember the voice they laughed at, the warnings they ignored. But by then it's too late. Preparation can't be borrowed. Strength can't be stolen. You either built it in the silence before the storm, or you're washed away when it hits. That's why the chosen one walks a different path. Not because it's glamorous, not because it's easy, but because it's the only way. While the crowd feasts on comfort, the chosen one trains in hunger. While others sleep, the chosen one sharpens their mind. While the world clings to illusions, the chosen one gathers truth like weapons. And yes, it's lonely. Yes, it feels unfair. But when the collapse finally arrives, the one who endured the burden of awareness will be the only one still standing. Because survival isn't an accident. It's a decision made long before the danger shows its teeth. Most people don't realize the weight of this. They think the chosen path is about glory, about standing above others in triumph. But it's not. It's about responsibility. It's about carrying a torch through darkness, even when no one follows, even when they curse your light. It's about choosing pain now, so that you're not destroyed later. It's about sacrificing comfort for clarity, denial for discipline, sleep for strength. And those sacrifices are invisible until the day they're everything. The collapse isn't coming. It's already here, inching closer every second, cracking the foundations everyone else swears are solid. You feel it, don't you? That tension under the surface, that heaviness in the air. Most people will keep pretending until the walls fall in on them. But not you. Not if you've been chosen. Not if you've seen what others refuse to see. Because when the walls crumble, the world won't need more dreamers. It will need those who were awake all along. People don't like to admit how fragile peace really is. They wear it like armor, strutting around as if nothing can touch them, as if the quiet moments they enjoy are permanent. They convince themselves that stability is natural, that calm is their birthright, that the silence of the world means safety. But peace isn't a gift, it's a lie. It's borrowed time, rented space, a trick the world plays on those who need to believe they're untouchable. And the cruelest part, the closer you crawl toward power, the thinner that armor becomes. The moment you step into the circle where stakes are higher, your peace is the first thing to shatter. You see, power doesn't protect peace. It devours it. The higher you climb, the more hands reach for you, the more eyes study your every move, the more shadows wait for your stumble. You thought gaining control would make you untouchable. No, it paints a target on your back. You thought success would bring you comfort. No, it sharpens every knife that was already pointed at you. The truth no one tells you is this: the closer you get to power, the more you will bleed for it. The air gets thinner up there, and so does your margin for error. People love to chase power because from the outside it looks glorious. The spotlight shines, the applause echoes, the world pretends to admire. But they don't see what it does to your mind when you can't trust a smile, when you know every handshake hides a blade, when every compliment is just another way of calculating how close they can get before they strike. Peace. It doesn't live there. It can't. Power kills peace the moment you taste it, and you either accept that bargain or you fall apart under the pressure of pretending it's still yours. That's why so many break. They chase power thinking it will fill the emptiness, thinking it will quiet the noise inside their heads. But when they get it, the emptiness grows louder. The noise becomes unbearable. They find out the throne isn't cushioned. It's spiked. They can't sleep, can't rest, can't trust. And slowly they unravel. And yet, this is what makes the path so dangerous and so addictive. Because once you've touched power, even as it shreds your peace, you can't let it go. It becomes your curse, your obsession, your cage. The chosen one doesn't chase power for comfort. No. The chosen one understands it's never about comfort. It's about carrying a weight that others can't even lift. It's about standing steady when every force around you is trying to pull you apart. It's about knowing that the moment you step closer to power, you're stepping further from peace. That's the trade, and it's not negotiable. Those who deny it get eaten alive. Those who accept it, they survive. But survival is never peaceful. Think about it. The crowd worships peace because they've never tasted the fire of ambition. They believe peace is real because they've never been close enough to power to watch it vanish. But you're not like them. You can feel the pull, can't you? You can sense that something bigger is calling, something that demands sacrifice. And if you answer it, if you step into that circle, you'll lose the quiet life you once knew. No more pretending, no more illusions. Just the cold reality that every step higher costs you a piece of yourself. And still, the chosen one moves forward. Not because they enjoy losing their peace, but because they've accepted that peace is temporary anyway. Everyone loses it eventually. Through chaos, through betrayal, through time itself. The difference is that the chosen one trades it willingly, sacrifices it for something greater. What's something that endures beyond the fragile comfort everyone else clings to? They understand that peace is the first currency demanded by destiny. And once you've paid it, there's no refund. You might think this sounds unfair. Maybe it is. But fairness doesn't matter here. What matters is that the path ahead doesn't allow both power and peace to coexist. You will never have both. You can either live quiet and forgettable, or you can step closer to the fire and let it burn away the illusion of peace. That's the price. And the question isn't whether you want it. The question is whether you can carry it without breaking. People talk about success like it's clean, like it's polished, like it comes wrapped in a shiny little box you can display on a shelf. They love the idea of achievement, of recognition, of standing taller than everyone else. But what they don't love are the scars that come with it. They hide that part, whisper about it in shadows, because the truth would scare too many people away. Every story of triumph is stitched together with wounds, and every victory comes with invisible bruises that nobody applauds. The crowd loves the result, but has no stomach for the process, no patience for the suffering that carved it. Scars are the receipts of success. You don't get them for free. You earn them every time you push yourself past the breaking point, every time you sacrifice sleep, comfort, and sanity for something bigger. People think they want success until they realize how much blood it demands. Not metaphorical blood, real sacrifices, real cuts into your life. Nights where your body begs you to stop. Days where your mind turns against you. Moments where you wonder if the pain is even worth it. But if you make it, if you endure, those scars become the only proof you ever lived fully. The problem is, most people want the applause without the scars. They want the smile without the teeth, the story without the suffering. That's why they'll never get it. Because success is never polite. It's brutal, it's cruel, it demands everything. It drags you through the mud, tears the skin off your back, and still asks for more. And if you think you can escape unmarked, you're already lying to yourself. Every step toward greatness will take a piece of you. It might not always show on the outside, but the inside. That's where the deepest wounds hide. Think about the ones who seem untouchable, the ones who stand tall on their mountains. Do you really think they got there without breaking, without bleeding? No. They just learned how to wear their scars like armor. They learned how to smile with broken teeth, how to keep walking on shattered legs, how to look unshaken, even when every night they drowned in doubt. That's the part nobody claps for. The silent battles, the hidden bruises, the invisible wars fought in the dark. And still, the scars aren't just pain. They're proof. Proof that you didn't quit when everyone else did. Proof that you carried on when your body and mind screamed at you to stop. Proof that you belonged in places others only dreamed of. That's why the scars are beautiful in their own twisted way, because they tell the story no one else could understand. The story of what it really took to stand where you stand. Without them, your success would just be luck, hollow and meaningless. With them, it's undeniable. But here's the catch. Scars don't fade. They stay with you, reminders of the cost you paid. And sometimes, in the quiet moments, they ache. Sometimes you wish you could go back, live a simpler life, keep your body and soul intact. But you can't, because you chose the path where comfort dies and ambition thrives. And once you've chosen it, there's no turning back. You carry the scars forever, and they shape you into something different, something harder, something stronger. Most people will never understand that trade. They'll look at your success and envy it. but they'll never envy the wounds it took to get there. They'll never know the nights you spent alone, bleeding inside, holding on to nothing but a fragile thread of belief. They'll never feel the weight of what it took to claw your way forward, but you'll know, and maybe that's the real prize. Not the applause, not the recognition, but the knowledge that you paid the price and didn't break. Success will always demand scars. That's the part no one tells you when you start. They only show you the highlight reel, the victory speech, the smiling face at the finish line. But the real story is written in the pain behind the eyes. The bones that never healed quite right, the heart that still carries cracks from battles fought alone. And that's the truth you can't escape. If you want to win, you have to bleed. If you want to stand tall, you have to crawl first. If you want to hold success in your hands, you have to accept that those hands will never be unmarked again. People fantasize about success as if it's a prize you stumble upon, a treasure chest waiting for whoever's lucky enough to find it. They convince themselves that timing or luck or connections are what decide it all, because that excuse makes it easier to stay comfortable. But the truth is far sharper, far colder. Success belongs only to those who were prepared before the storm arrived. It doesn't matter how talented you are, how smart you are, or how much potential you have. If you weren't ready when the moment came, you lost. And there's no second chance. Preparation is the most boring, most painful, most thankless part of the journey, and that's why almost no one does it. It doesn't give you applause. It doesn't make you look good. It doesn't give you instant results. It's just endless repetition, endless patience, endless grinding in silence, while everyone else is laughing, resting, wasting their time. That's why